The Honourable Member for Calgary Rocky Ridge.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. Parliament exists so that common people, the commons, will have protection from what would otherwise be the unlimited power of government. Every now and then we have to get back to basics, Madam Speaker. King John was forced to sign the Magna Carta. It was 808 years ago this week, actually, that he signed the Magna Carta, and I've got a real passion for civic literacy around the issue of what Parliament is here for. Why does Parliament exist? And getting back to those basics. So members are elected to this place. They're sent here to fulfill that basic purpose. We're here to hold the government for account. Not just the members that happen to run under parties that didn't win the majority of seats or even the most seats. All members here are elected as a parliament that will hold a government to account. Some members are chosen to become part of the government. But even the backbenchers on the governing party are here to hold governments to account. We all are. That's our job. Our basic function is to vote on the key issues of the day, and particularly to grant authority to the Crown to spend money, to make changes to the criminal code that affect people's liberty, these kinds of things. This is what we're here for. That's what Parliament exists for. And let there be no doubt, Madam Speaker, the changes being proposed by the government will weaken the power of this House of Commons and strengthen the power of government. Now, before I get too further into this, I must point out that I'm going to share my time with the member for Lanark, Frontenac, Kingston, and I'll look forward to his remarks too. I mean, the changes we're talking about here, I'm familiar with the arguments. We just heard some of the arguments in favor of the standing order changes from the member for Thunder Bay, Rainy River. I'm a Western MP. I spend a lot of time on airplanes, a lot of times in traveling. I'm a family man too, Madam Speaker, and there is certainly some expediency around the app, but hybrid parliament will give more power to the government, and it does give more power to the government, and gives less power, makes the tools available to the opposition more difficult to use. And, you know, I've never heard a constituent, I've never heard a person in my riding say to me, you know, what's really important to me is that Parliament become easier for MPs so that you can make things easier for yourself. That's not what Canadians say, Madam Speaker. They don't want their government to have more power and Parliament to have less. There are practical problems too, of course, with the motion. We've all seen the inevitable technical glitches, which there will always be. We've got problems with connectivity, with equipment, problems with simultaneous translation. And the motion certainly doesn't address any of those issues. But here we are. There's also lots of other problems with it that aren't technical, but a general lack of decorum that sometimes occurs through hybrid. We've got the lack of uniformity in background and people that can use a hybrid camera shot to create their own political messages or messages that are not that don't belong in parliamentary debate. But by far and away, the biggest problem that we will have if we adopt a permanent virtual parliament is entrenching the isolation and silo effect on MPs. If Parliament is to be virtual Parliament, hybrid Parliament is to be made permanent, we have to answer these questions, I think, first. Do Canadians want their MPs to have less physical interaction and less proximity to each other? Do Canadians think that their elected officials would make better decisions for Canadians if they spent less time actually interacting with each other? Do Canadians want their parliamentarians and their parliament to be more or less collegial? Do they want elected representatives to have more or less opportunity, as the member for Thunder Bay Rainy River said, to speak informally with members of the government on either side? Here. Do Canadians want their MP to have the opportunity to walk across the floor and have a quick discussion with another member? Do they want their MPs to have the ability to interact with each other in person? Do they want ministers and the Prime Minister to spend more time face-to-face facing the accountability of an opposition in Parliament with the equal rights and privileges that are afforded to members in this place? Madam Speaker, I know that Canadians expect more and not less accountability from their governments, and they expected their elected MPs to have the ability to deliver that. So hybrid Parliament allows MPs to have every ability to just silo themselves and be isolated from other members. Canadians in my riding, they ask me sometimes, why can't you work with other parties? And I say, well, there are many occasions in which MPs work across the floor and work with other MPs in their own caucus to affect outcomes on legislation or committee business or issues. But in order to work effectively together, you have to have the opportunity to build rapport and trust. And you can't do that through a video screen, Madam Speaker. This really reveals itself in hybrid committees. When members of all parties are present, and the member for Barrie Innisfil talked about this, how members from each party can gather in a corner and resolve an impasse that you have come to by just being able to talk to each other. Non-verbal body language is conveyed when you meet in person. When you're across a committee table from another member, you can get an idea of what the effect of what you're proposing if you're negotiating on a motion or debating a committee report. You don't get that through hybrid Parliament. You don't get that through a video screen. So if you're trying to get through a committee report, if all the members are together and there's differences, there isn't unanimity, but you might have the ability to have a consensus report. You're not going to get it done through a video screen. You need to be able to talk to each other. And these important, the importance of personal interaction is just lost in hybrid. So some members have commented on the growing use of the voting app by members. And the incentives to not be here with a hybrid system and a permitted and the ability to use a voting app really encourages members to do really anything but do their job that they're elected to do as a legislator and debate legislation in the House. They have every advantage to just go back to their riding and, while Parliament is sitting, and campaign or do any of a number of other activities. I know that members have talked about the ability to achieve a better life and family balance, but and I'm sure that this is an advantage for some members in that case, but it also gives incentive to do anything other than the job that they're elected to do. And which brings us to the permanence. What's being proposed here tonight is a permanent change to the standing orders, which is ordinarily only done through consensus when all parties agree. This is our democracy. The standing orders are how we govern ourselves in this place. And it's extraordinary that we're here under a closure motion, Madam Speaker. They're ramming this through with closure, the permanent change to our standing orders.
I don't even get to
we had proposed, Conservatives had proposed at committee, maintaining the use of the voting app and hybrid Parliament. We'll keep it. We'll let this run through another election so that members that are elected here can run and tell their voters, prospective voters, how they feel about this issue, and not permanently change the standing orders until there actually is an all-party consensus. That is the way to do it. That is the way that respects the democracy of this place. So if members value the office that they're elected to and think that Canadians want and deserve more and not less democratic accountability, and if they think that the permanent changes should not be done without all-party consent. I beg them to show some respect for the 808 years of parliamentary accountability and oppose this motion.
Questions and comments? The Honourable Member for Scarborough Centre.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. I want to thank the Honourable Member for his comments, and I agree that there are a lot of advantages of being here together to make sure that we serve our constituents. But my question is that what would he say for those members who, God forbid, have to go through health challenges? Back in February 2018, I was diagnosed with stage 4 cancer, and not having the provision of the hybrid parliament, I was not able to be a voice here of my constituents for 4 months until I have my chemotherapy completed. So I was not able to participate in the debates. I was not able to vote. So what would he say in regards to those situations? Because life can be like, you never know what's coming around the corner.
Member for Calgary Rocky Ridge.
Well, that's she makes. Look, no member, and I'm so happy that the member is here in this debate tonight, and that she is able to do so, and also, you know, the member of for Richmond Steveston East, Richmond East Steveston, and his remarks on his health challenges are important, but there have been long-standing tools. This is not new. Previous parliaments have dealt with this by way of vote pairing, and I don't think any constituent would want their MP to feel that they had to leave medical treatment to fly here and use their voice in debate. People should take time and look after their health, make that their personal priority, and not have the ensure that their vote is paired so that there is still democratic representation as well through a paired vote.
Député de Joliette.
Merci, Madame la Présidente.
Now, member for Joliette. I'd like to thank the member for his speech. And a few years ago, in 2017, the Liberals were in a majority, and the government House Leader wanted to change the standing orders. For example, no sittings on Fridays. We in the Bloc were in favor of that. But the government House Leader, the Liberal government House Leader, said, no, we're not going to do that because we don't have unanimous consent. There was support from some of the opposition, but it wasn't unanimous. And the government House Leader at the time said that in order to change the standing orders, it required unanimous consent. And so they backed down, and it didn't happen. But now they're saying we're going to change the rules with a simple majority, and that's precedent setting. What does my honourable colleague think about that?
And it's disgraceful. The members of that government and its caucus should be ashamed of themselves for what they're doing, and so should the NDP.
Questions and comments? The Honourable Member for New Westminster Burnaby.
So thank you very much, Madam Speaker. I like the member. I know that he shows up. Many of his colleagues do not, and this is the problem, Madam Speaker. We have, thanks to the Globe and Mail, who exposed the fact that Conservatives are the most absent in this virtual parliament. After the first couple of months of virtual parliament, the Globe and Mail showed us that Conservatives only show up 47% of the time. New Democrats showed up twice as much, 85% of the time. So isn't that member, when he raises concerns, and I know he shows up, I'm not trying to pretend otherwise, I'm saying his colleagues do not. And the real concerns about MPs abusing this, it really comes from the example that Conservative MPs have set themselves, being more absent than any other party in this House.
Honourable Member for Calgary Rocky Ridge.
Okay, I thank him for giving me the opportunity to put this nonsense to bed. That article referred to a time, I'll tell you, during the time that article came out, I could not even have, in a city like Calgary, in my home, enough reliable upload speed to be able to engage with the hybrid parliament at that time. I would watch it on TV because at least I could reliably see the image. I don't show up on the, being at work by logging in to the Zoom. I follow what was going on in the chamber. If I happen to have if I knew that I was going to be speaking or participating in debate, I had a real scramble on my hands to make sure that I actually could get the connectivity to participate. So if that Globe and Mail article and this member's measurement of showing up for work is all hitting the login credentials on their Zoom call, I think that's a pretty flawed measurement for how people participate in Parliament.
Do you mean debate, the Honourable